Hello everyone, I'm Gemma Beall. Welcome to Beyond Second Cognition. There's a script that I have been attempting to write for probably about 6 months. And this script is going to be the script that I've been trying to write for about 6 months. It's called the "if this happens, then this can happen" mentality, or as I call it, "if this, then that" mentality. And it's one of the biggest mentalities I see that is the roadblocks to the second cognition. And I believe I have mentioned it in some videos before, but this one I want to focus on what this mentality means. And this is my verbiage of the mentality. There may be others out there that call it something else, but for me, this is what I call it. And on the heels of Endell's last video, I think it's highly appropriate to discuss because it is one of those roadblocks that he talks about in the Ambush the Spirit video. What this mentality is, and this is something that I had a lot of problems with from many different levels, is that I thought if this one thing could happen, then something else could happen to follow it. And when you have this mentality, your focus becomes on the first thing, not the final destination of what you want. And as an example, I'm going to use one of the biggest ones that I had. You know, everybody knows I have a day job, and I have always worked since I was 16 years old. And when I first got on my path and I started embracing, you know, my traits and learning everything, I had this inner desire to focus my life 100% to my spiritual path. And in doing that, I had this mentality that if I didn't have to work, I could focus myself full time on my spirit path, and I could grow and expand, and I could help other people. And in my thoughts at that time, that the second part could only happen if I didn't have to have a day job. I found myself in this time period, and this time period stretched on for most of my path, so it stretched on for about 12 or 14 years. And I finally realized the things that I thought I couldn't do because I was working, the "if this didn't happen," I ended up doing anyway. And the "if this never happened, but then that did," because I shifted my focus to push forward on my path and to grow myself and expand myself in spite of having a day job. You know, my day job desire to not have was because at that time in my life, I wasn't in a point that I felt I was happy because I was still very ego driven. And happiness, and I'm going to address this while I'm talking about this, because that is one of the biggest goals that everybody has, whether they are pursuing a path or they're living out in the first cog world. Happiness is everybody's goal. And the one thing I came to very early on my path is that happiness should never be a goal. Happiness is a side effect of doing what you love, or being who you are, or fucking off everybody else's opinions. Because when you rely on validation from others or other people's opinions to be who you are, that sucks any happiness that you could possibly find out of you, because your happiness is a goal that's reliant on everybody else, not reliant on yourself. Now, if you take that concept that I just shared and you look at what Endell talked about in relaxing into your second cognition path, then it's going to make total sense. Because when you're sitting there, and I know I had this, so how many of you are sitting there, man, if I could only understand this stuff, I can get to second cognition. Man, if I could only do this, I could get to second cognition. And as he said, second cognition is not a destination. It's about becoming something greater than you already are. And that's going to happen no matter how hard you push. It's going to happen because it's innate within you through your PSOYCA. It's when you get sidetracked with everything else that prevents you from moving fully into the second cognition and even beyond that. Goals in and of themselves are not a bad thing if they are used as guidelines and not destinations. There's a lot of stuff that we're encountering having moved into the second cognition and striving to move beyond it, that shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, it happens sometimes. So I'm leaving that in here for you guys to see that sometimes talking about this is even difficult for me. This is why I do like to use scripts. So when I have something to say, I want to say it coherently, not incoherently. And that brings me to another mindset I want to point out. How many of you are sitting there thinking that if I could only get to second cognition, then my life is going to be a piece of cake? That if I could get to second cognition, then I'm going to be able to do anything. I'm going to be able to know everything. I'm going to be able to talk about anything, and it's going to be peachy keen. Well, that is not a factor in raising yourself to a different level of awareness, a greater level of awareness. You can tell the difference in Endell's videos when he does the off the cuff. He talks so, yes, I'm snapping my fingers here. He talks so eloquently and so coherently about it, and he makes it look so easy because he really knows his shit, you know. I really know my shit too, but I don't have the same ease at conveying what I want to say, and that is personal to me. We all have our own strengths, we all have our own weaknesses, and those weaknesses should never prevent us from doing things. So if I don't have this weakness, then I can do this. That's not even a saying in my vernacular anymore, because in spite of that weakness, I'm still going to be able to share and convey information to you guys. It may be more difficult for you to understand, but that's on you. It's not necessarily on me. So getting to second cognition is exactly how we've explained it. It's a different level of awareness. And there are a lot of times that you have things that you want to happen, and you have to sit there and analyze, okay, what do I want? And if you look at the idiom or the cliche, whichever one you want to call it, the grass is always greener on the other side. You understand that there's a lot of times that you have ideas and thoughts about what you want, what you expect, and you see somebody else that has something and you think, oh, if I could only do that, or oh, if I could only be them, then that's going to make your life great. Well, grass is not always greener on the other side. So you can't use others or what others experience or what others are doing or how others are progressing themselves and whatnot as your own measuring stick, because you are different. You have different experiences. You have different traits. You have different everything, because we're all individuals. So when you're considering this information, that's why I say apply it within. And that application within is going to be specific to you, your individual. So as you're going through and doing your personal house cleaning, look at the mentalities that you have where your growth is concerned. How many things do you think can't happen before something else happens? And then analyze why you think you can't accomplish the next before you accomplish the first. I mean, first cog is one thing. If my car is clean, then I can wax it. You're not going to wax your car with it dirty. That's one thing. But there are certain things that we put before ourselves, especially where our growth and mentality is concerned, that is absolutely not reliant on a 1, 2, 3 progression step. Like we said, everything on this path is spherical. It's not linear. It's not 1, 2, 3. And if you limit yourself to that linear progression of this must happen, then this must happen, then this must happen before this can happen, then the odds are that the final outcome you're wanting to accomplish is just never going to happen. Think about that. If you have any questions, please put them out there. If you have any observations, please also put that out there, because the one thing I've learned in working with other people and talking to other people about this stuff is we don't always see what we have inside until it's pointed out by somebody else. So if you have a certain mentality that you find is your own holdback, share it. You don't have to bare your soul, but share that with everybody else, because somebody may not see that they too have the same holdback in their own mind. I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank all of our subscribers. I want to welcome the new ones as well. Stay the course and don't give up on yourself, guys.